A school is a place of learning, and the School of the Origins is a place without walls that appears when we gather to learn about our inner nature and outer nature. We seek that place of interface, that double-sided mirror where we can see that what is inside of us is also reflected into what is around us and vice versa. When you really connect with the tree, you discover that that tree is also speaking inside of you. You feel the ocean, you get closer to its nature, to its vibration, and you discover that its voice is also inside of you. So this is what we seek when we do programs at the School of the Origins. Soto was actually surprisingly born in 2014. At that time, I was facilitating a 32 days retreat where we intended to go deeply into the 16 facets that compose the map of the School of the Origins. And we did that through creating art, movement, visioning, drumming, sounding, walking in nature, listening deeply inside ourselves and listening with the same curiosity and attention to what was surrounding us. And towards the end of this amazing pilot project, the information came through that it needed to be transmitted, it needed to reach a larger audience, and so the school was born. And I feel that, well, I was very surprised when it happened. It was not in my plans, and I needed to look within and decide whether I was going to respond positively to that call or not. And as I was reflecting on that, I realized that this kind of approach towards inner and outer nature was responding to a need of our times. In these times, I feel there is a lot of complexity happening. The more people are living simultaneously on the planet, the larger the complexity of what's happening among each other, between nations, at all levels. And I noticed that there is a great renaissance in the interest of consciousness, about consciousness. Not that consciousness has changed, but I feel that there are a lot more people that are becoming aware and curious about what it means to reach that place inside that connects us, connects our small container of the self to the much larger container of the planet, of our species and all the creatures that inhabit our ecosystem, but also beyond us, beyond the planet, beyond the galaxies, all the way into the source, into the wholeness and the unity of everything, into the mystery. But these are also times where there is a lot of confusion, because at times language is being misused, and the meaning of words is twisted in ways that makes it difficult for us to truly discern what is being transmitted, what is being said. There is a lot of everything, and our digital world and the power of the internet has connected us to each other and to information in a way that is absolutely unheard, and it's happening very, very fast. So it's easy to lose the thread of authenticity, the thread of really connected with reality as it is, through experience. For this reason, I feel that the School of the Origins is addressing a need. I hope that it will serve the purpose of bringing forward a mythos that is able to bridge between the mystical voice and what I call the inquiring mind, or the voice of science. The mind has developed in unique ways in the last 50 years. There are so many changes that we are experiencing as a species. And I don't think we are any longer satisfied with theories that sound really beautiful, but they're not really rooted in nature. We are seeking the experience and the connection and the mystical voice that doesn't lie, because it's a voice that is based exactly on experience and not on dogmas or on abstract ideas. But that in itself is no longer enough. We have developed a very inquisitive mind, and science has taken tremendous leaps in giving us an insight on how nature works, how matter is actually created and how it's operating within its structure. I think we need answers from both sides. The School of the Origins is very active. It really calls for the engagement of all of yourself. There are, as I already mentioned, two main avenues: experience and relationship. And how do we access experience and relationship is through our creativity. We have three main aspects of ourselves. We have the senses, very connected to perception, and giving us information directly into the brain, which elaborates the information and what we sense in beautiful ways, sometimes in a little bit of rigid and customary ways that we might be interested in expanding, so that our understanding of ourselves and the world gets larger and more alive. Then we have sentiments, we have feelings, we have a heart. We connect with other people and with nature through that sensation of love and connection. And then we have a sentient part in ourselves, which is our mind. And the three of them need to be cooperating together. And when we engage them all together at the same time, and we bring them into creativity, involving the body, involving the imagination, involving the visioning capacity, we are developing, we are discovering a channel that creates a relationship between us and our inner parts, and between our inner parts and the ecosystem we live in, that is basically unforgettable. It develops really deep roots, and that makes it so available for our daily life that it results in our capacity to transform and to start bringing changes in our lives that are in alignment with our true nature, not with what we think we should be or what we were told that we should become or do, but with the core essence of who we are. And that's very beautiful. It's very liberating, and it's very satisfying. It brings a lot of inner coherence, a sense of harmony, and a sense of grounding that are very precious. Often I hear people saying, "Oh, I feel like I'm coming home." And what I respond is, yes, of course you're coming home, because all of this is already in your DNA. This is really not a process of creating something new. It's about remembering and reclaiming something that has been in us all along. Other people also talk about how the sensation of getting closer to the core of their soul, of the core of their personality and nature, is bringing new colors into their lives and giving them the courage to make decisions that are truly in alignment with the dream. And when I talk about the dream, I'm really talking about a dream that has deep roots in your reality, in your nature, not a dream that only has wings. And we need both in order to truly bring transformation and change in our lives, and bring into the world the kind of service, the kind of communication and transmission that really belongs to us and uniquely to us. What many traditional healers and teachers call your medicine. That's your medicine. There is a lot of soul pleasure in this, and I firmly believe in pleasure. I think that what I call the pleasure principle is very important for us to stay solid and have continuity in a pathway that we are choosing in order to develop ourselves personally and spiritually. because without pleasure we lose interest. And pleasure is nourishing, and I'm really talking about soul pleasure here. It's not about something hedonistic. There is a way of connecting with beauty and with that sense of being part of a great tapestry that is beautiful, like a sunset is beautiful, that the pleasure principle helps us achieve and feel deeply. There is a state of being that I call living at 360 degrees, which means using all the gifts that this particular incarnation has given me and putting them to use so that I can be truly a useful co-creator in the life that we share on this planet and contribute to my community and to the world. I think we all have the right to live at 360 degrees. And in my experience with entering into this depth of connection, this deep intimacy with the forces of nature, I have discovered that my way of thinking and my worldview were changing, were truly being transformed. And I realized that this is probably what I call the original mind, the natural mind. Indigenous people live this way to this day without conflict. They have the ability to use all the skills that they have developed to create the technology they need to live in their environment in a way that is effective, that is sustaining life. But in the same time, they have not lost the connection with all the brothers and sisters, organic and inorganic, that surround us. So if I have a goal, is that of truly help myself, continuing to help myself to detox from the industrialized mind and to give tools to anyone who is interested in getting closer to reclaiming that original mind, that natural mind that belongs to us. We were all indigenous people when we started, if we go all the way back to our origins, to the beginning of our ancestral line. And I firmly believe that our ancestors are cheering us up in this journey, in this attempt. And sometimes I feel that reclaiming this way of being in the environment and with each other is maybe one of the few things that is going to save us when we face really big challenges, including environmental challenges. The School of the Origins is definitely not a religion and doesn't want to be. It's a pathway. It's a journey that we can take in order to connect more deeply within and without, the inner and the outer. There are people who have a very strong connection with a spiritual tradition or with a religious path and have come to the programs and have found that it offered a deepening to the practices that they already have and somehow an expanding of the concepts that they had already embraced. In the same time, there are a lot of people who maybe have studied many different paths and many traditions, but either because they are not born in them or because they find them too rigid or just not enough in some ways, and are interested in expanding their sense of being in a body and in a spirit, in nature with the body and with the spirit at the same time. So in that sense, I feel that the teachings of the School of the Origins serves a good purpose. It gives people the opportunity to either deepen and expand what they are already doing spiritually and religiously, or to embrace a spiritual path that is their own, but it is also based on experience and on logic. there is always a reference between what they do and what creativity is bringing out of them as an expression of what they feel and believe, and outer nature. So in order to navigate the territory of creation and of life, the School of the Origins uses a map that I call the Wheel of Life. It's a circular map and is divided into 4 parts, and each element of nature claims one of these parts. Think of fire, of earth, of water, and air. But also please imagine each one of these elements, which are very familiar to all of us, bloom and open like a flower of 4 petals. And each one of these petals is an intelligence that is pertinent specifically to the qualities, the message, the function that the element has, that each element has in our lives and also in nature. So you end up with a circular map with 16 segments. And in a way you can say that each segment is a universe in itself. It's a fractal that is constantly repeated at infinity in the entire universe. But of course, our mind is not really good at going into infinity in this way, so we study the first layer of the 16 intelligences, and then we enter into a second layer, and we stop there because it's plenty for the mind to grasp without getting confused, and with an opportunity to really develop a connection with all these concepts. Nature is complex. There is a lot of messages, a lot of symbolism, a lot of metaphors. But if you remember that you take each step guided by your own creativity and by your own visioning, by your experiences, I can assure you that it becomes quite simple and in a way self-evident, like nature is. I think that we know instinctually that nature nurtures us and also heals us. It gives us strength and it gives us trust in reality. And now we also have really interesting studies on how being in nature, really looking into the colors of green and blue, for example, in nature, is having a deep impact on our inner states and also on our physiology. I really like this idea of trusting nature because nature doesn't lie. And nature in us, when we look at our body, also, our body is incapable of lying. If we learn to listen to the language of the body and decode its messages, which are usually very clear and very honest, we can trust of receiving exactly the information that we need. Unfortunately, another layer of separation that has happened as our societies became more and more industrialized and all the consequences of Illuminism and favoring the rationality versus the visioning instead of embracing both, has created a separation also between us and our own bodies. But we can bridge that gap and we can learn how to pay more attention. And so nature, we can trust it. Even when nature is in its wild manifestations, creating an earthquake, bringing in wind that is knocking down buildings and trees, waves that are invading the land, nature never does it with malice. Nature is expressing its own cycles and it's purifying its own cellular structure in order to be able to continue to give us the gifts that we need. Truly, we don't exist without nature. Nature doesn't need us, but we do need it. There is no way we can sustain our bodies without the gifts of the forest and the plants and the trees and the animals. When we authentically connect with nature and we sense how trustworthy and how honest nature is, we also start developing more authenticity inside of ourselves. We become more real.